p.m. It does look like there is a quorum.
Yep.
So I think we can go ahead and get started. Is that okay?
Mrs. O'Connor on. No.
She is not.
Okay, got it.
She's not on.
We're going to go ahead and proceed. Thank you all for being here today. This is our diversity committee, and I'm going to ask Mr. Card to introduce himself, his team, maybe talk a little bit about background, just that we have not engaged the diversity committee in a while, and maybe the background and involvement of each of the Lodi members and things that we're working on currently and future attraction. How's that?
Thank you, sir. Well, for those who don't know, my name is Elgin Card. I'm the Senior Director of Outreach, Diversity and Inclusion, as well as the Ombudsman for the district. And I'll explain what that is in a little bit. Everybody always asks. Been in Lakota since 2007 with a little 2-year hiatus back to Princeton, and been back here since 2011 as an assistant principal and associate principal, and 8 years as the principal at Lakota West High School. So had the pleasure of working and helping with thousands of our kids, and thousands of our parents. I have three daughters. My wife has 3. I have a daughter in Columbus, and we have 3. 2 of them are Lakota East graduates. One will graduate this May with her teaching degree from in KU, and the other one will. She's at UC. She's actually at Lakota West right now doing some hours for her schooling. And then my other one's in 8th grade at Liberty. So very involved in Lakota since we've been here. Moved here in 2003 in Liberty behind Wyandotte. So we've been blessed in that aspect as well. And I'll let them introduce themselves. I'll let you do it right now. We'll come to you a little bit after I talk on it.
So, good morning. My name is Aisha Moore. Am I loud enough?
Yeah, you're good.
Go ahead.
I have worked for Lakota since 2001. So I was a teacher in the district, 3 or 4 different schools. And my #1 priority in life is what's best for kids. And so now what I do is I kind of do the behind the scene with the kids instead of being face to face. And so my job is to make sure that kids are seen, heard, treated with respect, no matter where they are in our district, no matter who they're around. So that's a little bit of snippet of my job for the moment.
Good morning, my name is Leah Aguilar, and I am a former parent that my oldest, my youngest, and our foster daughter graduated in Lakota. Our middle, we were in Pennsylvania for that. I've been active in Lakota since we moved here from California in 1998. I'm a teacher by trade, and I started out working with our families here in Lakota with our birth to 3 population, which has helped me grow for our littles who may have been born with an identified delay, or maybe as they are 2 to 3 headed towards that identification. And then that transition to preschooler 3 to 5s that we support. When we moved back in 2006, then I started working with our families here in the district that are qualified under our social economic category of 200% of poverty or below, and helping them to access families. That my #1 purpose is always that, to be able to help children and families be able to reach their full potential. And our parents all want exactly the same things. And sometimes I say, it doesn't look like the same thing in my head that it does in theirs. The #1 thing is we all start at the same place. We love for children, and we want what's best for their children. And that's how I got here.
So my journey to this position, they've been working with Lodi for some years now. 2 years ago this June, I was approached about working with Lodi and not being the principal of high school anymore. It was a very difficult decision for me. As those that know me know I love Lakota West. I love the kids, and so it's hard. But part of my reason for taking this job, and some of you probably heard me say this, was I started thinking back when I was a kid. And I grew up in a small town, Jeffersonville, Ohio. There was not very many people that looked like me. We didn't learn about anything, people like me, and I never felt really like I belonged. And so when my goal when I took this job was to make sure that all our students feel like they belong, whether it's religion, whether it's socioeconomic, whether it's special ed, whether it's race, all those things, LGBTQ. We want our kids to feel comfortable in Lakota. And all our kids, and I'm just gonna be very honest, all our kids don't right now. They talk to me, okay? I'll get into that in a minute. So we want them to see, like I said, seen, heard, felt, learn things, see themselves in what they learn, see people that look like them, regardless of what it is when they're learning. All those things is what I want to accomplish. And I'm just being, I've been very adamant, and we talked about that. And we're working through that. One of the ways we want to do that is a student voice. You can listen to all of us talk all you want, but when you go down and listen to the kids say what they want and they feel like they need, that is the key. So last year I set up student groups in each building, and the principals kind of picked them for me, because I knew the kids at Lakota West. I didn't know any kids really at the other buildings very well. So they picked those for me. We meet monthly. Now we haven't met for a couple of months because COVID. We had a hot rash of COVID, and I didn't want to be in the buildings as much with bringing more kids together than it had to be. But we'll be back on track next week. Just having conversations about all kinds of things. What do you want to see? What can we change? And it's not all around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It can be around anything. Had a great conversation with a group, or just the 3 kids at West Freshman over the last few months, or no, last few weeks, about dress code. And they're like, Mr. Carr, some of this stuff's outdated. So I took that and brought it to Mr. Vogelman and Mr. Miller, and trying to make some adjustments to some things there, because some of the things in there were from 20 or 30 years ago when I was in school, and it doesn't really fit now. So just things like that, whatever the kids want to talk about is really important. And that student voice is so important. And I hopefully soon we will get a meeting with students. We'll have a bunch of students and they can talk. You can hear from them. That is what I want to happen. And I've told Mr. Miller, and I've told Ms. O'Connor that as well. We need to do that. And the kids will be very happy, and they want to do that. They want to be heard. I know a young lady spoke there night at the board meeting, and other kids are just like, I want to go talk. I said, that's up to you. You gotta do what you do. It's open. You can do what you want to do. So, and then the other thing with student voice I've been able to do, which is when you're the principal, you get really close relationships with a lot of kids. And that's something I miss, because that's something I really took advantage of and I loved. And I'm marrying one of my students this summer. That's how much I love that piece of it.
As the officiant.
As the
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir. They gotta thank me sometime. But I think what has had it on me doing this position is we have a lot of kids that don't have anybody to talk to. Sometimes it's gonna be a male figure, sometimes they need a female figure. So there's about 10 kids I regularly mentor and meet with. Families are welcome with that. There's about 10 or 15 more that I'm able to see from time to time. I had 3 calls, two yesterday and 1 this morning from a principal saying, hey, can you come meet this kid? He needs. And so that kind of stuff is good, because what that's going to do for our district, for me, over the long haul, when they're 7th and 8th grade, they're going to, hopefully we have conversations and they're in a better place. And I really think, I feel like I have a great track record of doing that. You can't reach every kid, but I feel like I'll be able to help with that. So that student voice is so important. That's what the district has been screaming about and doing. And we built within our department. And I just mentioned this a little bit with the principals. So I deal with the principals a lot. In my ombudsman job, and let me get to that real quick, because it kind of goes with that. An ombudsman, I wrote a quick definition. I like mediate between 2 parties. So if there's concerns with parents. I had a call this morning from a concerned parent. If there's somebody has a complaint, if somebody wants to have some information, I deal with that. Okay, and I'll talk to the parent or the community member, whatever. I will talk to the principal, the teacher, whatever, the kids, and we try to mediate that and make sure that everybody's getting what they need. That has kept me very busy lately, which is a good thing. And along with that ombudsman job, I do the expulsion hearings. So those things have kept me busy lately, unfortunately. But those are some things I do with the ombudsman. So the reason I bring that back up with the principals, everything I do with principals is not equity, DEI, it's not that. Some of it is they call me about, hey, I need advice here, I need advice there, which I take pride in, because I was in the building 2 years ago as a principal. I do have some experiences and some knowledge and some things that have happened. So I think they trust me to give them some advice. And then there's times that I always go to Mr. Vogelman or Mr. Miller, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Just to be respectful of my bosses and make sure I'm on the right path. But I think those things have been, I think we've been beneficial to the district in that aspect as well. And that has some diversity stuff with it, but also has some ombudsman. So it's kind of a combination of things.
Can I interject
Yes,
for
sir.
just a second and let you take a sip?
No?
Just so that people understand, the ombudsman role is something we've had for a long time, and that was Ron Spurlock. So we essentially, not essentially, we gave you Ron Spurlock's role and added to it. So,
Yeah.
the full plate.
And I was very lucky to be able to, Ron was here a little bit last year, so I was ready to work under him. I have great respect for Mr. Spurlock, who is the mayor around here, as we call him. And he's been very beneficial to me in my career when I came here in 07 as assistant principal, just the knowledge. So that was very lucky to have him for some of the year last year to talk and learn.
And it seems like too that discipline cases have picked up, not just here, but
Yeah.
across the state and the country, just because kids are getting back to normal. And
Yeah.
so for a while, their behaviors might have been dampened.
Yeah, it's hot, a little hot right now, but I understand. We have 17,000 kids and
It gets warmer. And
things happen, things happen in the spring, and that is what it is. We have great kids though, and we're gonna,
We do.
our goal is to make sure that, I always tell parents, when I'm doing my ombudsman role, there are consequences and you gotta take consequences in life, but I'm more about teaching so it doesn't happen again. That's what we try to do in my role a little bit too. I think it leads back to my principal, my educator that I am. And then I do work with curriculum and HR on several things. As far as hiring, as far as make sure our teachers are teaching the right things. And, as a high school principal, a little bit about curriculum, you learn, some, and you do so much. I always said as a principal, I knew a little bit about a lot of things because you have to. But we have experts in curriculum, we have experts in HR, we have experts in special ed. I work with them to make sure I'm doing things the right way when it comes to the ombudsman position and the diversity position. And then also another thing that's been very beneficial that we do, we have a LEA, LSA diversity subcommittee that has teachers and aides and secretaries and custodians, LSA members, LEA members, that we talk to them about the things around diversity they see and things they like to see adjusted. And one of the big things we were able to get done here recently was they were really having, there was a language barrier when some families come into the building for immediate needs. And they were like, we need to have something, we have interpreters we can call for meetings. That's in advance, but we need something that is immediate. So we're able to work with the district and be able to get a phone service that if it's an emergency, a parent comes in speaking French or Spanish or whatever the case may be, they can call the service and help with the interpretation. That is so important to me because I think about if I lived in another country and didn't speak their language and I went to the school, how would it make me feel if they couldn't communicate with me? It would make me feel very welcome. So now we have a way to try to welcome parents. They feel, I talked to one parent and they were really happy. They actually called me about it. Somebody must have told them. So it was a great conversation with that. So we my days are, you say, what's your schedule look like? I never know, right? So today I have 4 different things I got to deal with that came up just from last night after I left work and this morning. I don't know if I'll get to them all, along with what I had on my schedule, this meeting, another meeting after this, other thing. We got a couple of kids we need to meet with over some situations. So trying to do those things have been it's rewarding because I think we're building a trust, not only with all our kids and with people in our community that they feel like they can call, have a conversation, and we take it serious. There was a time where people would come to me and say, I don't feel like I'm heard. And there's still some of that, don't get me wrong, but we're getting better and better as we move. And I think as we continue to grow and reach out to people and make sure they understand that they are valued, it makes Lakota better. It makes our community better. It makes our kids better for the future. And that's what we're here for. So I'm gonna stop because I don't have all that time. I want Ms. Moore to talk a little bit about her champions and maybe some of the things we did with this book this year.
So I lead up a group of champions, a group of teachers in each building, and we call them champions. They are there to be support for their peers in the buildings. So this program's been going for 6 years. And for the first few years, these champions, we all got together and I trained them just on working with kids that are different than you, diversity, bringing up things that, that are going on around us. And so every year we base what we do on what's going on. So this year, we have a lot of trauma, and through COVID, and you got to think that these kids' lives and adults as well have been just shaken up, and they don't know, you know, everything's different. And if you work with kids, you know that they need consistency, as probably a lot of us do. And when you take that consistency away, it causes issues with behavior and, you know, them to feel unsafe, or, you know, there's a lot that goes behind that. And so the book that we're doing this year, we're doing it through a book study. It's called What Happened to You. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this book. Just came out last summer by Dr. Bruce Perry, and Oprah kind of does part of the book. And so the way we're getting that out there is we're doing book studies. And so the staff, they all come together, and as they read, they have conversations around this. And it is the absolute perfect way to have conversations about trauma, things that not only the kids are going through, but as a teacher, what are you guys going through? And they all sit together and they have the conversation. And it's very helpful to adults to also remind them that the kids are also going through things as well as their parents and at home. So that is what we are focused on this year. Just trying to get things back to normal and talk about some of those traumas and give people a little grace. So that is what we are working on this year. So and again, I'll say it again, my goal in everything I do is kids first and what's best for kids. So that's what myself and my champions, that's our big goal.
Do you have champions in every building? Some buildings you have 2?
Some buildings we have 2 or 3. And then I have a couple of buildings that have 4, just
Yeah.
because of the way redistricting went, and they didn't want to let it go.
That's good.
So it's really good representation in each building. And it's really successful.
And it's strictly volunteer, correct?
Absolutely.
They do it because they feel, they
Right,
know
they
that
feel
they want to
passionate.
help, they want to help kids, they want to help their teachers. And I want to just piggyback on this book. If you haven't read, I think it's really good for grownups as well. It made me think about a lot of things in my life with growing up. It made me think about how me and my wife grew up different, why our situations are, how we do things are different. It made me think about, it really took me back to this one kid I couldn't reach when I was principal, and it really was just tearing me up because I felt good I could always reach kids. And it made me think about, the kid had some trauma in his life. And his trauma happened to be, I knew this, but I didn't put it together until I read this. This is 7, 8 years ago when it's happened. His trauma was his father. His father was a 5'10", stocky, bald-headed black guy with a beard. I was his father when he saw me. That's why I couldn't get to him. Mrs. Cruz, who was my assistant principal at the time, she did it. And I was mad. I was mad at me. What's wrong with me? Well, I figured out what it was. It was that trauma from that kid. And I actually tried to reach out. Tried to reach out to him, but I can't find it. But I just wanted to bring it up. It's really good if you haven't read it. It's easy to read. I actually listened to it and then kind of highlight the book, but.
Yeah, and again, it's very good for adults as well. I mean, it helps you remember things that you may not have remembered until you were triggered by reading it. So.
Zach, you know?
And I come to this in a really unique way that there's been a lot of conversation about this group. And I actually was one of the beginning pieces of this, and that's how I came into this role as well. About 8 years ago, we had a community conversation. And from that community conversation, that was kind of the birth of Lodi. And we have a facilitator that we work with, and that was at the time, I think you guys were on the board then too, that the conversation was probably one of our best attended, that we probably had 65 people. And that was when our superintendent at the time was Dr. Mantilla. And that's really kind of where the birth of Lodi came from, was what our parents were talking about. And then my role falls into that parent engagement piece. So I know some of you have seen me at community conversations, or have seen me at in the loop with the soup. And, you know, part of that is not only to be there to meet more parents, but also to be able to kind of hear again from that conversation, what are some things that we can tackle? You know, we were in a unique situation of the pandemic, and how do we answer some of those needs? One of the last conversations we had before the pandemic really started was our conversation with our kinship providers. Our grandparents specifically were invited to a community conversation, and as they kind of talked through what was going well for them, what their needs were, then that's where our Kinship Connections started. Last year, we were forced to be able to have that only virtual, but still have supports answering the needs that they had requested were their priorities. And we continue that now in person in our partnership with Kinship Navigator, which is a federal program that is available in our county for free. It's things like that. You know, we are a military family. One of the things that we did last year was that we have several schools that were recognized as Purple Star schools. We have another one in process this year. That last year during the pandemic, my middle son was deployed almost the entire time. It's something that, you know, when we turn around and look at it, the school that's going through the process right now with ODE, they did a survey of their families to see what that military connection is theirs. They had 25 students that they had absolutely no idea were military connected, and 4 of those have parents that are deployed. So when we take that step back to what's going on at school and that support of what happened to you, you know, realistically, our children know what's going on all over the world. We have children who know that their parents are not in safe places right now because of what's going on. That impacts their learning. That also impacts what the family is going through. We had a student last year who successfully, not last year, the year before, who successfully did a whole food drive for the store at the military base where his father was stationed, because he needed that outlet. How do I help my dad, you know, when my dad is not here? And just that outpouring. So it's something that when we continually look at what is happening with our families, it comes right back to the classroom and how are we supporting that? Looking at our parents, again, you know, with what happened to you, trying to link that so that everybody has that same common language. We partnered at the beginning of the school year with Companions on a Journey, and we did a night talking with them, facilitating on grief and trauma. You know, it's something that there are so many things in those layers of both personal journey and then the collective journey of all of us through a pandemic, and Companions on a Journey facilitating that, but then also having a facilitator that we provided childcare. And the facilitator with the childcare, then our high schoolers were our volunteers doing that childcare piece of it, but the facilitator had activities that they were working with the littles with. And just the conversation of those high schoolers with the littles, yes, we had 8 high schoolers that were volunteering, and we had like 15 littles. But those 8 high schoolers were having those conversations and watching some of that one-on-one of, you know, student to younger student, and both of them having that collective conversation was really kind of a whole purpose connection that, you know, it is part of what I get to be a part of. A variety of other things. So, you know, it's something that in my desire to help families be able to be connected to everything, then one of the things that we do is really looking at some of those opportunities for our families that, like Mr. Card had brought up, our families that don't have English as a first language. How do we help them to be able to get access to everything going on with their child's education, because that just builds that strength of parents as educators at home too. And so trying to remove some of those barriers for technology, remove some of those barriers of reinforcement of what we're doing at school for literacy, and being able to have them feel confident that even in their home language, they are that child's first educator, and that child parent bonding is so important in what they translate back to the school. So being a part of that, sorry, I need my glasses. Looking at a variety of other things that relate to our mental health piece of it, you know, that partnering with our organization here in the community, C3 for a mental health day, looking at partnering with some other community opportunities as we look at you know, the level of anxiety in our students and offering some of those movies and supports related to that. In the fall, we did a virtual, you know, that there is no question that we have to look at the rate of teenage suicide and how much that has shifted to an even younger age group. And I don't know if any of you saw the news this morning, but, you know, the heartbreaking story of our 22-year-old beautiful student at Stanford that was the soccer captain, that, you know, our students, you know, definitely don't give a lot of signs, but if we are continuing to have that conversation, the number one thing we do in mental health, we talk about QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer. And it is breaking the stereotype that if you ask somebody, are you thinking about it? That doesn't put the idea in their head. But if you're asking that question, then you are helping them to know you're a safe person. And so trying to help have that opportunity for our parents to do that. So we have partnered with a variety of mental health agencies and being able to do that in that education with our parents too.
While you're looking, one of my things that really kind of proved its worth was when we had the shutdown almost exactly 2 years ago today. The three of you, but really we in terms of, we had to find out how that was going to look for our kids in our community. And the first thing we had to do was feed our kids. And so there were a lot of people involved in it. I don't want to like downplay that, but like you were able to make sure that we were hitting the kids and families that needed to be fed during the shutdown. Then also you helped with, you know, Ty Wesley and his team in terms of making sure kids were connected when we went fully remote. So that was huge, and that doesn't happen, you know, without, you know, you.
Well, thank you. And we've been very fortunate in really helping our families, because as we know from the pandemic, how that has been an economic impact to everybody. And so, you know, the data shows that the hardest hit are more middle income families, that some of those jobs have not come back, or some of those jobs are reimagined, and families that were 2-income families are now single income. And what does that look like? And how do we support that? And so a variety of different things that, you know, we've been very fortunate that we've been able to continue our lunch program that still serves everybody. That continued through the summer. It allowed opportunities that as long as you can get to this location, or even our families that were on VLO, that this still provided an opportunity that program feeds all children 2 to 18, and then our students up through age 22, depending on their needs. So it's something, it's available to all children, and it's a critical need. There's a lot of fun that I get to do. There's a lot of seriousness behind it, but there's a lot of fun I get to do. One of the things coming up is we're headed to our Parade of Graduates. The reason our Parade of Graduates ties into the Office of Diversity and Inclusion is because that representation matters. When we have a little who's really struggling with school and why am I here and what am I doing, and they see somebody walking down the halls in that cap and gown with that poster of what's next, then it's like, oh wait, that's why. And some of those conversations, and oh, that's my big brother's friend, or things like that connection. It's also for some of our high schoolers that are graduating, school wasn't easy. They were that kid asking, why am I doing this? And all of the people who are celebrating them of, you did this, you made it, this is exciting. And so Parade of Graduates is coming up, and you know, it's just such a special time for all of our teachers to celebrate these kids that they loved for years, and their parents, you know, their parents and grandparents that come to celebrate that, you know, they get to see all of that piece of it. Some of the other fun things, we do fanfares. You know, the fanfares, we've got one coming up next week. So fanfares are hosted by a school, and all of our schools do it. But the number one thing of that fanfare is really that message. Typically, we do it at the start of the day. We have one building that chooses the end of the day on the last day of school, which is okay too. But that fanfare is the opportunity of adults that are not necessarily their teachers to be there celebrating them of you've got this. Typically they're Mondays or Fridays, you know, either the start of the week that I'm kind of dragging, or the end of the week, it's been a hard week. And that message of you can do this. We are so proud of you. We're glad you're here. You know, in our county, we work on a premise of the 40 developmental assets. And those are things that children need to be successful. And one of the developmental assets is having an adult outside the family that acknowledges them. And that student being able to say, oh, well, so-and-so. And so us as fanfare, you know, they know that, oh, Mr. Miller, he was at my fanfare, he knows me. And then they see him later and he says, hey, how's it go? All of a sudden it's like, he really does care. This is meaningful. And so it gives an opportunity for our community to help our kids identify somebody that you are so important and we're so glad you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, while you're thinking and looking, can you, I was at the community conversation with the grandparents and the guardians, and I was astounded by how many there were. Do you know how many grandparents are raising their children in our district?
In our district right now, we've got close to 260 children in kinship care. Kinship care is different than what's considered foster placement, though they may be through foster placement with a kinship provider. A kinship provider is somebody who is related to that child in some way. A grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, an older brother or sister, that they are raising a child that they are tied to, but are not biologically the parent. And so, yeah,
I was surprised how many there were.
and some of the needs of what that looks like. You know, we have a pretty active kinship group now that meets in person over at Bethany Church first Wednesday of every month. And one of the things that they do with that is having that connection. At the community conversation, the grandparents shared how hard it was because their peers aren't raising young children.
Right.
The parents of the children that their grandchildren are playing with, there's a lot of, so they're not really part of that peer group either. And they're suddenly lost in this, who is my village? Who is my support? And so through that conversation, one of the things was just being able to talk to people who understood what they were going through. And that really is the purpose of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion too, is helping people to find people that meet up with their needs. And so these people that are in doing this kinship care, it's hard work. And at times it's very, very fearful, you know, and, you know, we had a grandparent very openly share how fearful she was to go to sleep every night because what if something happened while she was sleeping and she was the last person left to care for this child. And then we went to a pandemic. So it's when we go back to what happened to you, you know, as we come to this part of it, we are still dealing with trauma and how do we support and give that grace that is needed.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I can come in now or there's going to be room for me to speak. I have few questions that I want to ask. I've listened to everybody. I have a few questions I want to ask Agent Carr. And also the person that spoke about champion, I didn't get the name right, the lady in the middle. So Mr. Edinka, I want to know from what you shared, you said growing up in the city where you grew up, I couldn't get the name. You say you feel you did not belong there. What was the reason why you felt that way?
I think for me, as somebody said, representation matters. And the only people I saw ever that looked like me was my family, and that was it. So when I was in school, and we had a social, we didn't have a lot either. So between being a young Black boy in an all-white school and not having very much, it made it very difficult to feel part of what was going on because I was very blessed as I got older to find some friends and some people, my pastor, Both my pastors, they're on their pictures on my desk. That's how big they were to me. You know, I had a grandfather and things like that, but outside of family, I didn't have anybody around that was like me. What that made me think is this: I'm very blessed, and I've been very blessed to be in a great role. I feel like I've worked hard. I've got some breaks, been around the right thing. But when I was a young kid, I had never ever dreamed I could do what I'm doing now, because nobody I saw ever did it. Not even really on TV. You know, so that was kind of
Thank you. Thank you so much. Then I have a follow-up question to that. Now, I believe that you are very, very successful because you rose in your career, you achieved so much. Today, you even represent, you're the leader of the diversity group in Lakota School District. So to me, that's a huge success. Now, follow-up question to that is, if today, from what you were saying, if you have students that feel they don't belong, what do you do? Just like you did not feel belong at that time, today you're successful. What do you tell them?
Talk to them about my journey. I try, a lot of things I do with kids is personal, if it can be. Sometimes it doesn't relate to them, so I may grab Miss Moore or somebody else. But I try to use my story and the things we would go through to help them understand that. And it's been pretty successful, I feel like, in my time at Lakota, to where they see that, because I'd always say this: they see me coming in a nice suit now. They don't know that journey. So they understand the journey was here over time, hard work, got blessed. And I'll be honest with you, sir, if I could play football, I wouldn't have went to college. So I had an aspect, I got to go to college because I could play football. I had some opportunities and breaks there. I worked for that. Don't get me wrong, I worked my rear end off to be able to do that. But those opportunities I got through hard work, through a break, found a man in Lakota when I came here that saw something in me, my mentor, that I didn't think I could even do what I did, which was great. So you need those things. But I can't get to every kid, I'll be honest. Miss Moore, I know she talks to some kids she works with that she's had success with. I have other people in the buildings and people I know in the district. I even brought people from outside the district to have conversations because their story, their experiences fit more with this kid, that they can have that conversation.
Okay, then I know I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna try to narrow it to where I'm going to. Do you now believe today, with your success and, like you said, hard work made you who you are today? Do you think the way you felt at that time was your imagination, not really?
Oh, no, not one bit. No, not one bit in my imagination.
I have not finished my question. So my question is, you said it. You didn't see anybody like you in that area. And you did not feel you belong at that time. But you look around you, you gather strength from the people that look like you. Instead of focusing on people that do not look like you, you focus on people that look like you, your parents, your grandparents. And today you are a very successful man and you wear suits. And because of hard work, do you now believe that the way you thought at that time was your imagination, not really the factors outside, but you, the factors within that made you who you are today?
No, I would 100% disagree with that. It wasn't imagination. It's a way. I mean, how do you, if somebody feels a certain way? I talk to kids all the time. The kids tell me this. The kids in our district tell me this all the time. We don't have a lot of time, but I got a great story. We can talk another time where a little girl caught me outside the council office at West. And
yeah, we can do that. I just want to summarize, even whether you accept or not, this is a fact from your own story, how successful you are today, because I know you are one of the most successful people in this school district now. So from your own story, I'm just using your story and how we can use your story to help other kids who might feel they cannot be successful because of external factors instead of internal factors. Instead of looking like the people focusing on the people that look like them and not make it as an excuse for those that don't look like them and not be successful. So I use your own story to maybe think that's the way I think that we can be successful wherever we are. We can be successful whatever we do. It depends on who we think we are. And instead of focusing on the outside factor, to focus on inner factor and strengthen ourselves. And I believe if we use that as an example, there are a lot of things we're not going to be spending too much time on. Anyway, I yield for other people to speak. Thank you.
Do you have another question? I thought maybe for Ms. Moore.
Oh, yeah. The other question was the lady in white. Sorry, I'm on Zoom, so I didn't hear the name. I apologize. We have a group called Champions. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Who are the people that are in that group, and what do they do to effect and help the children that are disadvantaged?
So, excuse me, the people in the group are teachers in this district. They are, they span from all different age, and they understand and they see that in certain instances that there are kids that are not being treated the way they should because they're right there in the school and they see it. So they have been trained to have difficult conversations with people and how to say to someone, you know, you don't treat a kid like that, but still be respectful to your peers is what I taught them. So those are things that are really going on in the school, and we need people there to support and to stand up for kids that can't stand up for themselves. That's who's in the group.
I have a question on that. What ethnicities are included in this group? What ethnicities are included?
It's all.
How much?
Male, female.
Male, yeah,
Okay.
every
Then on the bill.
is all representation.
How much does the diversity program cost?
Cost.
This doesn't cost anything because these people do it out of the kindness of their heart and they don't. So,
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the diversity program.
I have no idea. I don't look at the budget. I go help kids. I'm not about the money. I'm about the kids.
Well,
So I don't ask that question to Ms. Logan. She may know.
Yeah.
right. That's not,
It's not why I do this. I'm here for the kids and I'm in there helping the kids. So I know my budget's hardly nothing that way. And I can't do anything very much. Most things I do, we bought some books, but I bought some books out of my own pocket too, because I thought it was important enough to do that.
I think too, there's another good way to look at it, to look at cost if they weren't here and weren't in their role.
absolutely.
And there's a huge cost to that.
So we do not have a number or a dollar amount that we spend for the diversity program to be implemented.
So I can pull that together. I don't have that right at my fingertips
Yeah,
right now.
I agree.
But I can pull that together. But I know Elgin talked earlier, it wouldn't be the full amount of his position because part of his position is ombudsman as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
And so I can pull that together, but I did not know that question would be asked.
Yeah, no,
And so
that's
I'm
fine.
not prepared with an
Of
answer
course,
to that.
yeah, just when you can get that.
So would it, like, that piggyback on your question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would it just be the cost of the salaries? I mean, is there anything else in
We
that
don't.
department?
Yeah, because we don't pay the teachers.
Right, that's what I'm just trying to figure out what the
We do have a
budget.
We do have a small budget that has been set up. But to your point, though, there are things that, while now it's been carved out and put into a budget that is now called diversity and Lodi. It once was in the assistant superintendent or in the superintendent's budget.
Right.
So now because we have a department with a name, it's been moved there, but it's not necessarily new expenditures. So I think that'll be part of the story as well.
That's what I.
And to go on that, I know one of the things that will be in there is that it costs roughly $2,000 for transportation for our parade of graduates.
Right.
Because we require our seniors to be able to ride the buses to their elementaries for safety purposes. And so I know, that there's a little piece of
Right.
that. So but those previously would have come out of the assistant superintendent's budget.
And the parade of graduates, can you explain that a little bit more? Is that people who have graduated go back to their original school?
So it is all of our seniors. And I actually have a meeting today. How do we connect our VLO seniors with all of our seniors at East and West? They go back to their home elementary schools. If they did not have a home elementary school with us, they can choose to go with their friends or, identify a school. They do not have to participate. It's voluntary. But then they cap and gown a sign of what's next for them. Are they going to work? Are they enlisting? Are they going to college? What college? Those types of things. And then they walk the halls. And all of the littles in that elementary school, all of the staff. And depending on, the school, some of those retiree teachers come back to be able to celebrate those children because they helped raise them for a very long time as well.
They get clapped through.
They raise them
Yeah.
always and the little kids clap as they.
And I would
Sounds
encourage,
really-
I know that you guys have probably been.
Yeah.
But I've encouraged you to pick the school and go, because it's unbelievable.
It's so fun.
It's
So fun.
one of the best things we do.
It is.
Another question is, what problem is the diversity program designed to fix?
It's time to fix to make sure our kids feel a part of Lakota. That's the overarching easy answer, but
And I would say that for my part of it, my part is to help parents to be able to feel connected from some of our parents that have not had that opportunity. So again, going back to our committee conversation with our kinship providers, we're 23 buildings and 69 square miles. They're not all in the same building, so they don't have that same connection. But suddenly they were in a conversation and saw all of these people just like them, and to be able to share what their needs are that are different than somebody else's. And then how do we respond to that? Because those people are our people. They're part of our community. They're part of who's raising our children. And when you say to somebody, oh, it's bring your mom to school. Well, I don't have a mom. And so our champions helping to change that language of bring your special person to school, whether it is a parent, a grandparent, an aunt. It suddenly is not, I don't have a mom, and now we're re-traumatizing of I lost my mom, or I lost my dad, or my dad's on deployment. Bring your special person. So our champions help to change some of that language too, to make it just accepting that welcome your family, come on in.
Well, and ultimately, you're removing barriers to academic success by doing that and
Absolutely.
reaching those children. The ultimate goal is to help provide academic success for kids who may not see that in themselves or
And
have barriers.
I don't look at it as a problem, as fixing a problem. I look at it as being proactive and educating people on everything, on anything that's different, diverse. So no, it's not a problem. It's being proactive.
And when you say just like them, who would you define who them is? Would you elaborate on the word them? You said you were just like them. When your students come and they say just like them, who are just like them, what would them mean? Like what kind of students are you referring to?
For a student raised with a parent in the home versus a student raised with their brother and his wife, and he's really raised with his cousins, but that's who these are his parents, but he has to identify them as that's my aunt and uncle. Somebody else says, well, where's your mom and dad? If we take away some of that barrier language, then nobody's questioning.
So
Oh, wow, look, you fit in just as everybody should.
So basically like families that are not the traditional family.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It could be anything. Our traditional families are parents who are exactly that. But parents, whether it's a single parent household, but there are both parents. Our families are really defined by the family, but it is some of our language sometimes acts as that barrier, and changing a word or two to make that be more inclusive is it's not anything but just removing a barrier of everybody's welcome.
When my kids were in elementary school, it's kind of a good example. We had the muffins with mom and donuts with dads. And the day before the muffins with moms, or the week before the muffins with moms, one of my children's friends lost their mother. So she had asked, can I bring my dad? And there were parents that were upset that the dad was there because it was muffins with moms. They didn't know the story. They didn't know that she had just lost her mom like a week ago and still wanted to come and still wanted to be included. So changing some of those verbiages and words, believe me when I say I don't like to compliment anything Mason does, but they have changed theirs, and I think it's adorable because I have a nephew that goes there. They have changed their special day called KISS, and KISS means kids invite someone special. So it kind of helps with that, because we have to realize not everybody has a mom and a dad and a grandma and a grandpa, and so it's kind of trying to make those kids also feel included.
And we're a relocated family, grandparent day, grandparent luncheon, things like that.
Yeah.
My children never participated because their grandparents lived in California. It's not something that can happen. So, how do we get more parent involvement, however that parent is divided, that special person involvement, because the number one thing we know is that children really do well in school when they are supported both in school and at home. And, including all of those people in that journey it's important.
So we are removing the words mom and dad, parent and grandparent in our activities to be more inclusive.
We're not removing them.
You're replacing them or
Here's what I will say.
finding,
They still use yes, but a special person is just the right thing to do for all our kids. And that's all I care about. I don't care what people think about it. It's what's best for our kids. And I'm the one that gets to see kids cry when their parents die in my school. I'm the one that's going to these funerals. And then we can't have enough decency to adjust it, to make sure that our kids feel welcome. Sorry, I will argue that every time. Because I'm the one that deals with these kids and I see it all.
I was just asking a question.
I understand. And I'm just answering a question.
So what evidence or data do we have to prove that the problem that this is designed to fix is actually ever something that was a problem?
Talk to kids.
Again, not
It's not a problem, just reality.
Just
educate and inclusive. You said the word inclusive. That's what we do. It's not about taking anybody's name away or their title. We're being inclusive for kids. That's what we do.
But what if I want?
And I would say that the evidence given was that this was started from a community conversation roughly 8 years ago by one of our largest attended parent conversations. And that was the outcome of that. And so I would say, again, that parent voice, we have a lot of things that we look at student voice, but that parent voice of what was asked.
Yeah, thank you. Are any of our hiring practices based on race or culture?
no. What I love to have the first group of people working for is yes, but walk around this building, you don't have that. And I'll go just use myself as an example. I've hired all kinds of people. I've hired probably 100 people up in this district. If they were good, we hired them. If they weren't, we didn't. They're a person of color or not, and they weren't good, they're not here anymore. That's the way I've always done things. But when I talk to kids, they'll look at you and say, Mr. Carr, now that you're gone, nobody looks like me. I can talk about Lakota West, that's the kids that come to me still. I understand that, but we have never, I'll speak for me, I don't speak for everybody. I have never hired anybody because of what they look like. I hired because they're the best person for the job. Would I like to have some more diverse people? Yes, ma'am.
This is off topic kind of, but what about me? I didn't, in school, I didn't fit in. I was someone that was by myself. I didn't have the clothes that a lot of the kids had. I came from a very poor family. We had foster children. What about?
This is all about color. Socioeconomic,
It's not just color.
LGBTQ. This is not, you can look at our track record with kids, and we've helped all kids, no matter what they look like. I feel very confident that I can fill up this room with people we have helped of all colors and all races and all religions. It is what it is. That's the way I feel.
And I think one of the things that we're focusing on right now are the broader overreaching. When you look specifically in a school building, it's really easy to see what's happening with what that is. You know, whether it is the counselor setting up a lunch bunch and has decided, you know what, we've got a group of 5th grade girls that are really struggling in some personal relationships because somebody's always the odd man out. And then, you know, okay, we're going to work on some social skills and we're going to work on some friendship skills to be able to do this and have lunch bunch, because we all know we do better when we have food in front of us. It just, we all can do that. And to be able to, okay, let's go out, let's put this group together, and they start meeting, and it changes that dynamic of who that circle is, but it also has the opportunity for that counselor to recognize other children that, you know, for whatever reason are not fitting into what is happening, to be able to change the relationships of some of the negative pieces that are happening, but also to build the relationships for some of the students that were maybe on the outside fringes that needed to be brought in a way that was not totally dependent on that student doing all the work, but that adult helping to bring them in, teach them some skills, and be that confident adult behind them. You know, it's okay, I'm here with you as they move into that group. Those happen in all of the buildings in a variety of ways that, you know, you'll go to an early childhood building and they'll have friendship groups, you know, and sometimes those are kids who maybe are very, very quiet or don't have a lot of that opportunity at home to be able to have peers around them because of where they might live or things like that. They might be in a new neighborhood. When we first moved here, we were the very last house on the street and there were no houses this way. You know, my kids needed a friendship group because there was nobody. And so what does that look like? And you know, it starts at the early childhood all the way up, and it is not looked at as, you know, it's because of some sort of diversity need, as much as that diversity need is this child isn't having the same social experiences that we would typically developmentally expect. And that speaks more to, if it were you in that early childhood building, you definitely would have been part of a friendship group and being able to build that circle and that confidence and skills, so that then when you got out on the playground, you could say, hey, you want to go do this with me? And that's more what that looks like.
I think it has, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think.
Okay, I think it's refreshing. It is refreshing to hear Agent Cass said what he said, because that gave me enough encouragement that our hiring is not going to be based on economic status, it's not going to be based on race, it's not going to be based on, you know, diversity should be, in fact, we need to even really define diversity. Because if we are going to go by like, I have to be successful because maybe a teacher looked like me or a coach looked like me, or I don't want to do it. I'm not trying to overflow that aspect, but hearing that from Agent Carr, I like it. It's just like saying, okay, let's also hire children. I mean, a teacher that is handicapped, because we have students that are handicapped, wants to learn to see, oh, he is handicapped. So it means that if he can succeed, I will succeed like him. So I really, really like it that I can hear this from Agent Carr. One thing I heard in this discussion was ensuring that teachers are teaching the right thing. I would love to know a little bit, what is the right thing? Is it like a curriculum, or what do you mean by teaching the right thing?
I think working with Mr. Coney and the teaching standards that are set forth, you can teach standards and still have materials that everybody sees themselves in, which is, I know for my, you know, I'm an 8th grader for my daughter personally. I always tried to throw those things out. She wasn't really getting them at school, and she would ask me, Daddy, why? And I'd say, here we have, but I see more and more of that. So the standards are set, and Mr. Coney and his team does a great job with that. I'm not an expert at that. However, we can make sure that we're teaching standards and getting different materials in there that everybody sees themselves in. I think that's important.
Unfortunately.
So
We're out of time.
I have one
this
more
is-
question. One
no,
thing.
I have not finished. I have not finished.
What?
I have not, let me close. The reason why I asked that is because you all know that right now we had a lot of complaints about teaching the right thing or not teaching the right thing in the schools. And one of the plans we have is to make sure we have curriculum audit. This is my understanding of curriculum audit. It might be different for everybody. If we conclude with curriculum audit and we have a standard set, whether what we are not interested in having in the school district, which is critical race theory, whether is found in the school district or not found in the school district, the result of the curriculum audit will help me make my decision, as in handling any teacher. If it's concluded that critical race theory is in our school district, then my job is going to know how do we stop critical race theory. But if it ended that critical race theory is not in the school district, fine. Whether it's there or not there, we already have a standard that is not there. So any teacher is teaching what is not right, then that teacher is responsible for whatever other programs or teaching materials is bringing into the class. So that is why I asked that question, because you talked about teachers teaching the right thing. Thank you.
Do you have one more?
Now, one thing that I do see missing is someone from like the CARES program or someone to represent the special needs students up here.
We do that as well.
That is part of my role.
That is part
Is that
of
part of your
Leah's.
role? I didn't really hear you
Yeah,
mention
they mentioned special
that.
ed several times.
We work with Ms. Longworth and her team a lot to make sure those kids, that all our kids, whether it's, as I mentioned, race, religion, special ed, are getting what they need and being included in.
The CARES group, the leads group.
Do you work with the CARES group at all?
Yes.
I know, I'm just here because they have a concern about their voice. And so I'm trying to give them a voice. And I feel if you are working with them, that is wonderful. But I do know that that is something that they have brought up as a concern at several of the board meetings. So, I mean, even if we had one of them represented here, I mean, but if you work with them, that's great. I just want to ensure that we are representing that minority as well.
They have to go through a process to be recognized as a group in the district, and they're currently doing.
They're in that process, but that doesn't prohibit me
From
from
helping them.
helping them and
Right.
being parts of some of those things that are moving forward.
And I met with parents a couple of times as well.
All right, I want to thank the three of you for sharing the board community today.
Thank you all.
All three of you.
Hey, Elgin.
We'll see you next time.
Hey, Elgin, I know you talked a little bit.
I'll have to check out the
conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very good.
But we're gonna, I got it.
We don't have dates though, I don't think.
We got some leaders on the other day.
We don't have dates, so.
Matt?
Yeah.